Rinpoche, thank you for agreeing to do this interview on your upcoming book, The Diligence chapter, The Joyful Endeavor of the Buddhist Path.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for editing this whole book.
Thank you so much. Your new book, called Diligence, The Joyful Endeavor of the Buddhist Path, which is based on Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, or the way of the Bodhisattva. This chapter is on the paramita of diligence, or the perfection of diligence. And what's most interesting is that you translate diligence as joyful exertion. In fact, joy is a theme that runs throughout the book. And the last chapter of the book is called The Art of Joy. And Shantideva's last stanza ends with joy propelling everything we do. Could you take a moment and explain how the diligence chapter corresponds with joy?
I felt quite inspired and compelled to give teachings on this chapter from the Bodhisattva Avatara, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, by Shantideva, because personally I think it has been a great help for my own challenge to meet my aspirations to be a practitioner that I aspire to be, which of course then as being a practitioner there are many elements. But one of the elements is how you could be consistent and diligent in your path and in your practice and in your endeavor as a meditator. And also then I thought this might be actually helpful for others as well to know, and that's why then I felt very inspired and compelled to give teachings in depth on this from my experience. I think some of them are, as in the book's commentary, is going to be very traditional, and some of it is going to be from my own experience. So, to answer your question, how does joy relates with the diligence, or the practice of diligence, or paramita of diligence? It is generally when we think of being a diligent person, we think of being somewhat very hardworking and very studious or hardworking in your field of what you are trying to accomplish or what you are trying to do. And it's true, but that's just more of the outer shell as what goes on. Those who are actually quite successful in being able to achieve what they aspire to achieve in any field that they are applying themselves, has to do a lot with motivation and inspiration, and also has a lot to do with how they sort of engage with the consistent effort. And if there is a joy involved, then it becomes like, as in the book itself it states, like for swans to drive into a lake. It's not going to be so hard, because there's a naturally joy and affinity to swim, and so as also a child to play. there's going to be joy, and also a child is not going to be having much of a challenge to play in the field that child is interested. So it's like that. If we can keep our mind focused on what we are trying to do and what are we trying to achieve, and that also being not just once, but throughout our effort, and remind ourselves and try to motivate ourselves with a sense of kind of purpose, and purpose being related to your effort being the key to achieve. And then thus in the effort, if you have a lot of passion or joy, then that effort becomes a much lesser of a load, and also much of a natural and also enjoyable. So I think in that way, in the book, it as stated by the Shantideva, that all the practices of the Bodhisattva has to be coming from what you are trying to kind of achieve as an Abodhicitta practice or benefit of others, or the diligence that you apply to bring forth the outcome of enlightenment for all living beings. So in that way, I think, I thought people can apply in other field that they are engaged with a sense of same methods and same kind of structure and the ways of working with one's own mind and effort. As in the Diligence chapter, it is being clearly laid out and pointed out. I think it could be very well adapted in other fields that are more secular.
When you were giving teachings over these many years, I have always been struck how you speak about diligence as, of course, applying to the Buddhist path, but you also emphasize how applicable diligence is to our everyday lives. And I was wondering if you could say a bit more how diligence helps us in our day-to-day lives from your perspective.
In everyday life, outside of the spiritual practice also, we have our interests and we have our passion, and then also we have our goals, and all of those requires, in order to materialize something as a positive outcome for your life, and also reap the fruit of them, we need to be diligent to apply ourselves in order to accomplish what we set to accomplish. And in there, what comes up the most for most of the common people is not that they don't have the interest. It's not that they don't have the passion. It's not that they don't have the kind of sense of how that interest and passion and goal could actually serve them if they can achieve them. But what comes up is also a sense of impediment to accomplish them. And that is a lot to do with one's own mental state and one's own kind of habits, and also one's own self-esteem, and then also how you organize your mind and your time. So having habits of procrastinating, for example, as in one, that is sort of physical and mental both. And then mentally also, when you go to do something that is sort of like more what you feel is going to be a great benefit for yourself or for the larger life of yours, there comes a little bit of also a sense of attachment to the outcome, but rather being able to see through in the means. When you have that, then you put on a pressure on yourself. You know, the attachment sort of turns into a pressure on oneself. And then with the pressure on oneself, then one begins to feel a lot of sense of insecurities as, oh, can I do this? Am I able to do this? Am I good enough to do this? I'm equipped to do this. And this kind of a lot of insecurities that is related to one's own self-esteem. And also it turns into a sort of habitually what sometimes people have a tendency to kind of disparage themselves more than encourage themselves. And also gets into a negative thinking about themselves than the positively kind of boosting their own confidence. So Diligence chapter in the Bodhisattva Avatar talks about how to sort of work with those procrastination and feeling kind of heavy and not getting started or move along. And also how to sort of not be distracted with the sort of things that, just as, for example, you are required and you are required to do something more sort of productive and seriously engage in applying yourself, you find small other pleasures. So for example, tidying up the house, and also doing something that is mundane and that has not much of a great outcome, but rather you kind of like distract yourself doing those and then spend all of the time doing that and not really get to the more important thing. So we trick ourselves to not do what we need to do, what is required of ourselves to do, by this kind of a small distractions of doing something else that sort of is easy and that sort of kind of you find a comfort or convenience to engage. For example, as soon as the time is up for you to actually do your session or apply yourself to homework or apply yourself to kind of like get to the work you're doing, you almost kind of with that pressure to bounce off that pressure, you start to sort of scroll or watch TV or something like that, and then you kind of not get onto the cushion or do what you had to do in other fields as well. That is important. And then that leaves you within a sort of like a regret or low self-esteem afterwards. And then this is sort of like a little bit of an, crocodile eating its own tail and feeding itself. And it sort of goes round and round in that way, and it sort of becomes a sort of big struggle. People are very capable of sharp, intelligent, very much able to reason. But then this kind of habits are also found in a very sharp, intelligent, reasonable people to not, apply themselves in the right way. So Diligence chapter talks about how to sort of be self-aware, and then how to also change from negative impediment states to positive, encouraging states and constructive states to apply yourself consistently. And then when you do get exhausted, for example, by over-applying, then how also it's good to take breaks, but not to take the breaks so that the break becomes your whole life, and not get back to the application.
Right.
So in that way, I think it has a lot of profound kind of an instructions as how, if you want to succeed in your spiritual path as well as also in your studies, or if you're a student, or in your, application as an, career person in your field of work, that you are working to see it through and get to the finishing line. And as well as also just in your own mind as how to organize yourself to relate with your, for example, diet, as well as also health, as well as also to your sort of social relations, and this can really be broad, very, very broad in that way.
Yeah. It seems that the principles of diligence relate to where we struggle the most, in whether it's in our day-to-day life and where we are hung up. But I know that many people also struggle in their Buddhist practice in this very same way, with procrastination and low self-esteem. So I was wondering if you would say a bit more about what the essence of diligence is in Buddhist practice, particularly as it is one of the 6 paramitas, which you've always said applies to all of the other 5 paramitas. But if you could speak a little more just specifically around Buddhist practice and diligence and how this can help us.
Well, in the Buddhist practice, I think we know we have many lifetimes habit, and particularly also in this life, strong habits of paying too much attention to our own needs and our own cravings and our own self, kind of dictating what we should be doing. And that comes with a lot of neurosis when you're so overly fixated on yourself. There is a neurosis, appropriate self-care and self-attention and healthy relation with oneself is quite the fundamental ground. But when you do it excessively, then it becomes sort of, very, again, never-ending struggle with yourself to be met. So in the Bodhisattva's way of life, in the Bodhisattva's path is from the beginning to have some recognition that that's not who you really are, who you have to be. You could be somewhat from the beginning train yourself to be a more, as we all in the Buddhist teachings, Mahayana teachings, there's an emphasis, we have the disposition or the Buddha nature, we could all become enlightened, or we could, in order to become enlightened, take up the Bodhisattva's way of life. And in there, the essence is going to be the bodhicitta practice. And in the essence of the bodhicitta practice is how to sort of minimize this sort of self and self-indulgence and the self kind of like a neurosis by replacing it with altruism and with the kind of love of others and care for others, and trying to organize your life so that you have a more larger impact on the society and others who are in your atmosphere or across the space, right? So in there then, you take the Bodhisattva vow to care for others and work yourself to progressively awaken your disposition to enlightenment so that one can then serve all living beings in the end as an enlightened being. And for that, then the paramitas are very important. You don't get to be enlightened without the paramita practices as a means to achieve that state of enlightenment. So then, you need to be generous to others as you are generous to yourself, or you need to be patient with others as you would not be patient with yourself. So always equating others as important as yourself, or even more, being generous, patient, and then try to observe kind of moral discipline, and then also meditate, and then increase the three wisdom in your mind. And diligence is the key factor for that, for those all to accomplished. So, on a daily basis, trying to kind of do for immeasurable practice, which is loving kindness and compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, and also try to see where your mind and states are. And is it too much self-focused, or is it really with some kind of a relatively balance with the care for others? And if it's not, try to sort of make that be balanced, with generating loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy towards others. And you are not exempt in that. You could be, part of it too. So, on the question of the question, you need diligence, and then when you also engage in that way with the joy in the practice and the path of the Bodhisattva way of life in life, you just, I think this is what His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama is, I've heard emphasized so many times in the past as well as also now. You become more sort of an asset to the community in that way. And people also respond to you, as someone significant in their life as well, that sort of has their interests, their lives, their interests is being kind of cared for. And then also with that, then there comes trust, and then also your ability to sort of live your life more holistically. While caring for others, you also are able to care for yourself, because what goes around comes back. So more loving kindness being extended out, the loving kindness comes back. The more generous you are to others, people are generous. So it becomes more balance in that way. And then, you have a lot of positive outcome in your life. And then, of course, if troubles come, then you have also, moral discipline. Okay, if you get hurt, not hurt in exchange of being hurt. Rather restrain that. And then also apply patience. So for all of those, I think wisdom isn't sort of an eye. Diligence is the hand and the feet that sort of like allows you to work towards the what you see is best for yourself. So in that way, it really is very helpful.
Yeah, it seems that diligence almost underlies everything, both in the path and also in our lives, in a way that we haven't seen brought out into the open as much. Actually, this is the first book or commentary on the Diligence chapter that exists in the English language. So I think it's a wonderful contribution to the body of people's understanding of Dharma and how to apply that to their lives. And Rinpoche, you have written many books, and one of the most recent is Peaceful Heart, which emphasizes the practice of patience, also from the 6th chapter of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Shantideva. In that book, you have said it's a continuation of Training in Tenderness, which is your book on Sewa, or loving kindness. Would you also feel that this Diligence book is a continuation of the Patience book, or Peaceful Heart? And how would you say that is so?
My primary focus is to help the practitioners and people who are on the path, and try to offer what I have learned from my teachers, as well as also my studies. And some huge amount of my life being a practitioner. But yet at the same time, also what I offer not being only categorically just only for the Buddhists and the practitioner, but others, people who are in the fringe and who are also interested and open-minded to read Buddhist books, to also take something from that and be on benefit, like let it be about, tending in the tenderness, like the heart of an loving and caring for all others, how that's going to be so much of a fundamental base for us to function in the society and for the health and mind of yours, as well as your relation with others. And then also with the, peaceful heart, patience is very much required, because the life is going to be not as smooth ride as one maybe perhaps. And it's maybe perhaps for the best from the patient's point of view, that the more you have that kind of bumps, you can actually grow better. So that, and then now this, diligence also to kind of like be in that way. Primary focus being for the help that maybe perhaps can be found here for the Buddhist practitioner, but then also others who are in the fringe or who are also open-minded, from other traditions. We have a huge Christian, populations in America or anywhere else. And I think they're very open to Buddhist teachings and the readings and the concepts and the practice, because their main focus is also on altruism and outreach of themselves to have a bigger meaning and bigger life to impact the society. I hope that this could be also appreciated. That's not me, but the kind of teachings that are in the Buddhist teachings or in the texts could be appreciated and applied in their own practice of spiritual path. So in that way, yes, it is a continuation in that way, and I hope that it serves. And my intention is really to serve, to have the just little to any amount of an benefit that this book will bring to the audience or reader. I dedicate that, for the kind of longevity of all the, altruistic people in the world, and their aspirations to also be fulfilled. And also for the kind of like increasing interest in the inner workings of spiritual life, and more and more people turning inwardly to a spiritual life, as the outside is kind of almost becoming more and more harder, and it's challenging and falling apart.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Rinpoche, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today and explore the teachings of diligence for your upcoming book, Diligence, The Joyful Endeavor of the Buddhist Path. We are so grateful for everything you have shared today, and I cannot wait for people to read this book. There are so many details that are applicable to our everyday lives and where we struggle, as well as how to engage the Buddhist path and be successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.